Hi everybody. Thanks for coming back and working some more on Clarke with me. I hope you've been having fun practicing these. He keeps on extending the technique, and in this one, which is the fifth study, now we're playing over 2 octaves. And there are a lot of interesting things about this one. All we're doing is running scales. And as trumpet players or cornet players, we think all we need to do is push down the right buttons and the note comes out. But that's actually not quite true. It's a lot like singing, where we have to have our body in the right position to produce that tone in agreement with the instrument. So as we're going in scale motion like this, we don't really notice those little details that happen in between the notes unless we go very slowly. So I'm going to recommend slow practice for this for sure. And for everything else that you do in Clarke, actually. Let me go ahead and play one and see if we can learn anything from this. Okay, this is number 88, which is the second one in the fifth study group. Okay, and I noticed quite a few things as I was playing through that. One is I've been playing this quite a bit faster by habit. And the thing is, whatever you do, you get used to it. And so if I played it at a different tempo, which I just did, I played it a little bit slower than I normally play it, I'm stumbling a little bit. So that is really, really important to take into consideration, especially when you're working on a piece for performance. And here's where you kind of build those skills. In other words, you get accustomed to playing it at a certain tempo marking. And then it's going to feel a little bumpy or a little unstable at a slower or faster tempo. So if you play through the range, a good way to do this is just put the metronome on. I think that's the bottom tempo that he recommends. Somewhere around 72 to the quarter note. And as you go on all the way up to double that speed. Of course, you can go faster than that if you're capable. The judgment call that you have to make is when you start to be sloppy, back it off to where you can play it smoothly. And when you play it smoothly, comfortably at a certain tempo, then move that tempo around. Put the metronome up incrementally. Start very slow and go up incrementally. It's a great way to practice. Now, many of you know this and are hopefully already doing it. But the real point here is these are very repetitive exercises. They're scales. We should already know the patterns by now if we're beyond the elementary stages of playing. We may not be able to play 2 octaves, as in this particular study, but in any case, the pattern is not something we have to think about anymore. And that's exactly what we want. We want an automatic reflex. The difficulty is when we repeat something over and over again, and it starts to become possible for us to do it unconsciously without any management. It's happening automatically. That's great. That's called a habit. But the problem is most people just repeat the same bad habits over and over again. They don't make improvements or corrections or adjustments. And that's the whole point of playing these exercises. So you're really doing yourself a great deal of harm if you just play them over and over again without being very, very mindful. So what we're going to do is we got to ask ourselves the question: Am I improving, or am I just ingraining those bad habits? Now, we've all got bad habits. Even the greatest players have bad habits. So this is a kind of a workshop where we can really start to eliminate some of those bad habits and replace them with better ones. And for an advanced player, this is a matter of very, very small, tiny adjustments. Little corrections throughout the whole system. So what I'm going to do today is give you some ideas that I found to be very helpful to me to improve my playing. And one is I call freeze frame. Now, a freeze frame is especially useful in something like this. let's say I'll go ahead and play, maybe start it on the C. As I play, I'm going to be playing along, and if I feel like it's smooth, like it's flowing, it's going in the right direction, I'll just all of a sudden, almost randomly, so I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to do it, then on a note, a random note, I'm going to go put a fermata on that note. When I put the fermata on, I sustain, and I call it freeze frame because it's like this is a video, we're moving all the time, and we get to a certain frame and you go doink, okay, now I can look at that closely. And what are you going to look at? That's the question. And the list of things is almost endless. But a really good thing when we're playing scales, especially faster scales like this, is look at the amount of tension that's in your hands. Both the hand that's holding the instrument, that's supporting the weight of the instrument, and the hand that is operating the valves. And what do I mean by look at? See if you're holding excess tension. See if the hand feels somewhat like a claw and not like dancers. Right? Not supple and loose. If it can be improved at all, relax, let go of the excess tension, go back into the pattern again. So I'll go along. Well, I found out that I was holding a little bit of tension in the throat. It's very, very common. And I let it come back into what people call the sweet spot, the resonant place that vibrates the easiest. There are lots of good illustrations of this. One of my favorites is if you've ever had the opportunity to be in an echoey chamber, like maybe the nave of a church or someplace that's very, very reverberant. And sometimes you can find, if you sing very softly, you can find the resonant sweet spot of that space. And all of a sudden, that very, very soft, very, very soft voice gets amplified tremendously. That's a resonance. That's what you're looking for. So a lot of times when we're playing this, because we're concentrating so much on keeping things even, maintaining the tempo that we have, the action of the fingers, very, very obvious, how our lips feel, many other things, we forget that we should be staying in the resonant sweet spot all the time. Now that sweet spot stays the same as you go through the range. And this is one of the most challenging things about this particular exercise. You're covering 2 octaves. So I started on F. I don't know whether I should do this right now, but I'm going to play through it. Okay, I got through it, but I started to have trouble as I was ascending, the last section. So when I slow down and put a fermata on those notes, of course I've been doing this for a long time, so I can very quickly recognize, oh yeah, I'm a little bit off. Mostly it's a psychological thing that is causing me to try too hard. So I know I'm going up, so I'm going to start to force. And even in that first octave scale, I'm da da da, and I'm starting to do this with my cornet voice. Da. Now it doesn't sound too bad, probably doesn't sound too bad to you, but if I exaggerate it, I think you'll get the idea, and you need to listen for this in your own playing. I don't care what level of player you are, you can always produce more free resonance, and the better you get at doing that, the easier it is to play in all ways. You certainly need it for the technical stuff, for sure. So you can tell I'm kind of choking, squeezing, pressing, pushing. What is it that Bobby Shue says? Press, I don't know, something about pray. So you're trying to get the note. You're trying to get it any way you can. No, your goal here is to release the resonance completely as much as possible, as much as you can. Now you're going to find out at a certain place in the range, it's difficult to do that. Now there are other factors involved that you can't blame yourself entirely here. I don't know what your situation is, what the quality of instrument you're playing on, the quality of the mouthpiece, how well they actually fit you, how well they function. So it might not be you, it might be the equipment. But the fact is, we have an incredible ability to adapt to almost anything. Rafael Mendez, who was one of the great trumpet players of all time, played for many, many years on a horn that didn't have any compression. It was very leaky. And he simply became accustomed to what he needed to do physically in order to get the results on that instrument. And this is another good reason for, I'm not going to talk about equipment today, but it's a good reason for trying to find the best instrument that you can play. Clarke says, find an instrument with the best valve action possible. Well, that's certainly important. But one that is even throughout the register is very important too, one that vibrates evenly and the notes are relatively in tune. So if you have a good instrument, that's something to be grateful for. And if you don't, then whatever instrument you have is making you adjust yourself to it. So if there's any way that you can improve the quality of the instrument that you have, like I said, I'm going to take mine into the shop. It needs some adjustment. And so I'm struggling with it a little bit now. But that's, in other words, don't blame the equipment, but the equipment might be contributing to your difficulty. So don't blame yourself either. Just see what's happening and do this as best you can. So I'm going to make those little adjustments again so you can hear that last scale. Now I'm choking. Of course, I was running out of air. We all have excuses. See, now in this instrument, there's really no good place to play that E. Now, I realize that some of you may not be comfortable playing in that range. Don't strain. Don't strain. Don't strain. All the teachers say it. We still do it because it's kind of fun to strain. Really like trying really hard, trying to get it to happen. But if you can always bring yourself back to that balance point where you're getting the easiest, freest sound and your most natural voice, that's what this is all about. Now, as you change range, it's challenging to do that. So I recommend that you use this freeze frame technique in order to help yourself do that. You could be concentrating on posture. You could be concentrating on, your embouchure setup, for example. You could be concentrating on, I mentioned several times, choking in the throat. I wasn't releasing the air properly. Everything has to be in balance for you to function. And you can feel when you're playing a scale whether you stay in balance as you're moving, gradually through the range. So this can be a very, very useful exercise. I'm going to go back to fingers. Because some of us do have issues with the fingers. I know I didn't start out playing the first one, for example. Oh, by the way, just a little aside here. I have numbers written by mine. This is my first Clarke book that I'm looking at. And so number 88, which is the second one that starts on a G, I graded myself a 9 to a 10, which means I can play it consistently 10 times through with quality at the top tempo, almost. That's why it's a 9 to a 10. If it's a 10, some of them are a 10, 9 to a 10, 9 to a 10, 8. First one I have is marked as 7. That means I need more work on it. So don't spend too much time on the ones that aren't giving you any difficulty. Go right to where the issues are and see what you can do in order to solve those problems. And by slowing down, playing at a much slower tempo, and especially by sustaining a single note in the scale at some point, you start to give yourself a chance to become aware of what's going on when you're actually blowing through that note. Now I forgot, I needed to use the slide on that note on this trumpet. Sorry, cornet. That feels very stiff and very awkward. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to relax. I'm going to picture what it is that I want it to feel like and what it is that I want it to sound like. This is not wishful thinking. It's aiming at the target, especially if you've sensed it before. So take the easier ones and the feeling that you have, that you get when you're playing those, the feeling of enjoyment and confidence and fun. And if you're not getting that on the more difficult ones, that's what you're trying to cultivate, which means you have to slow down, take your time, and take these apart and solve the problems. This is the way every player who has had success works, and Clarke was a master of this. He was extremely patient in the development of his playing and extremely persistent. He never gave up. He always continued working until he got to the point where he could maintain his ability to perform at an extremely high level by just playing for a half hour a day, and then he would play the concert in the evening. Of course, he was doing very similar drills to what we're working on today. If you know the setting up drills, that's Clarke's own warm-up. So the moral of the story for us is we need to be patient and take the necessary months and even years to continue to develop these skills. Now, what's the point? So we can impress our friends at parties? I don't think so. Most people are not going to be impressed by these skills, just other players possibly. But if it allows us to play the music with greater freedom, then we've accomplished something. So we're creating ingredients and giving ourselves freedom in order to make something that is beautiful and hopefully meaningful. Keep that in mind when you play these exercises. And as I've said many times before, play them like music. I'll see you next time. Enjoy your practice. Have a great day. Bye-bye.